Well, I think we'll get started now. I'm going to pass the torch. My name is Ross Yelsey, Assistant Director of Admission and Marketing, and I'd like to welcome my colleague, Edwin Isaac, Associate Director of Admission and Financial Aid, to chat with you to begin our session.
Thank you, Ross, and good morning, good afternoon, good evening from wherever you are Zooming in from. Again, I'm Edwin Isaac, the Associate Director of Admission and Financial Aid. I'd like to introduce my colleagues here. Just going from left to right on my screen. Ross just introduced himself. I'll go with Dean Almanzar, Taryn Almanzar, David Hooker.
Hello.
John Haskins. And I hope throughout this process of learning more about different journalism schools, you've had an opportunity to just join in on a lot of the webinars that we've had and talk to each and every one of us and essentially do your homework to see which school is the best fit for you. Today, we have an hour available to you where we'll talk to you about the financial side of things and just the financial side of things. We'll talk about the costs of the programs and how to pay for those costs. I'll first jump into talking about the cost of the programs, and I'll swing it over to Taryn, who will talk more about the institutional scholarship side of things. Towards the end, we'll open up the chat so you can ask all the questions that you have. I'm sure you all have questions. You do have questions. Please ask your questions. You will have questions. You want to have as much clarity as possible on the financial side when you think about the investment of higher education, of a master's degree. You want to have absolute clarity, and we want to provide absolute transparency. All right, so with that, let's get to the cost of the different programs. And I'm going to share my screen so you all know how to access this information. When you just go to the journalism.columbia.edu website, just go down to admissions, and there you go. You have cost of attendance. Each program has its own cost of attendance. You see here going across the full-time MS, and I don't need to read them all to you, but you see all the programs are here. What's important is you understand that there's a line obviously for the tuition, the fees, and your living expenses. And I'm going to take one example here. Our most popular program is our MS full-time program. So for each of these programs, you see there's an option for details. I suggest you all click on that. And then you can see a breakdown of those tuition and fees and living expenses. Okay. So what you see in the first part is what Columbia University will charge you. And I actually kind of want to start at the bottom of this. You see there's an application fee for 100, there's an enrollment fee for 1,000. Those are two things that you would, obviously the application fee, that's, do when you submit your application. And then if you're admitted into the program, you would have the $1,000 that would be due in May. But let's talk about the other aspects here. Essentially, what happens is you receive a bill from Columbia for the fall term once you're enrolled. That bill will come to you in August, and it's due in September. And what you see here is what we call the non-negotiables. You have a health fee, a medical insurance, all these things down the line that will be on the Columbia University bill. Roughly right now, it's about $40,000 per semester for an MS full-time student. Again, it differs pertaining to which program that you are in. But you should expect, as long as like all of us have been working at Columbia, some of these costs have gone up a few percentage points every year. So you should expect a bill from Columbia University that would be around $40,000 for each term. All right. So the whole bill is not due up front. You'd have half for the fall term, and then the other half again for the spring term. So that's what you want to think about as far as what you would have to pay to the university and what you want to kind of plan for that aspect of things. Okay, there's a bill for the fall and then a bill for the spring term, and the fall term needs to be paid for prior to you being able to enroll for the spring semester. Okay, and then when we go down here, you have to think about equally as important, your living expenses. All right, this is New York City. It can get quite expensive, but you have to live responsibly, okay? Take into account the items that we have here. This is, again, an estimate of what we think it would cost for you to live in New York City for the duration of the specified program that you're looking at. You have to think about rent, your food, all the personal expenses that you may run into. You have to think about these things. These are true and real costs that are going to happen. Okay, so you need to plan this out. We also, expect these to go up a few percentage points as well every year. But you could live more lavishly if you so choose to, and there's that opportunity if you would like to, and you could live more frugally. And again, it's, as some say, live like a college student, live responsibly. You know what your financial situation is. Take the time to do some research, see how much it is to rent an apartment, see how much it is to have an apartment that's provided by the university. There is an opportunity for on-campus housing. We have a limited number of beds for students. So I would suggest, getting some information about that. Perhaps you want to live off campus, but I think I think all of our students, they want to live in a reasonable traveling distance to the university, and you want to look at the rental costs for that. And then every other line, just something to think about. You guys are all adults now. We consider you independent. So just take the time to see how much it would to live in New York. If you want to have a more in-depth conversation about your personal side of things, that we are all available to speak with you. And I think you should do that. You want to take into account of what is it actually going to cost you out of pocket. We estimate here, as you see, about $3,800 a month. Maybe it's a little bit more, maybe it's a little bit less, but these are things that you need to think about. We can circle back to this a little bit towards the end if you have some questions about the cost. Again, all the programs have different costs. We don't need to go through each and every single one of them. But let's talk about now how you're going to pay for these things, right? And we're going to talk about three different areas: loans, outside scholarships, and institutional aid. So if you go back here to admissions, and let's go to financial aid. And then we'll navigate down to, we'll start with loans, and then we'll go to outside scholarships, and then I'll swing it over to Dean Almanzar for institutional aid. Now, four-letter word, right? Loan. No one wants to take out loan, but it is a reality, and I'll go through this, and I hope I can provide enough information for you to at least direct you to do a little bit more homework on this if you'd like. And again, feel free to contact us. But there are two different options for loans. There's federal loans and private loans. For federal loans, that's only eligible for students who are citizens or non-citizens of the United States of America, or permanent residents, shall I say. Now, you can apply for a federal direct unsubsidized loan, and what you see there is the federal direct graduate plus loan. Now, the unsubsidized loan only allows you to borrow up to $20,500. Okay, and that would be divided evenly between the terms that you're registered for. Now, what you had as an undergrad was called the parent plus loan, right? You're able to put the rest of the whatever you owed on your parents' name. No more of that. You are now considered, again, independent student. It all falls under you. Okay, so now what you have being offered to you by the federal government is what's called a federal direct graduate plus loan. You would have to run a credit check to see if you're eligible. In my experience, the majority of students do pass this credit check, even if you do not have credit. As long as you don't have adverse credit, generally what I see is people being approved for this loan, and you can receive up to your cost of attendance minus any other aid that you have received. So for example, we're using easy numbers here. If the cost of attendance is $10 and you receive an unsubsidized loan for $2, you could get a plus loan for $8 to cover the remainder of all of your cost of attendance, which includes your tuition and fees, as well as the living expenses, like your rent, your food, your personal expenses. The loan can cover all of that. The only requirement for, well, there's many requirements actually, but the main requirement here, you have to be registered for at least 6 credits, which is not a problem if you're in any of our programs. Okay, whether you're full-time, part-time, you'll always be registered for at least 6 credits. It might get a little funky if you're a part-time program, but generally everyone's registered for at least 6 credits. There's other requirements that you can see there, but you can read through that yourselves. But just make sure your loans are, any prior loans are in good standing. That's important as well. If they're not in good standing, then you cannot receive any loans until that's all cleared up. So that's issues of such as being in default of any loans, maybe over borrowing during your undergraduate year. So just make sure all of your prior loans are in good standing, and then there shouldn't be a problem to receive the federal loans. The private loans, now, any student can apply for a private loan, whether it's a citizen, permanent resident, or an international student. Okay, the school actually has a list of suggested lenders. We can send that list to you. The private loan is somewhat similar to the Graduate Plus loan in that you can borrow up to the cost of attendance minus any other aid that you have received. If you're an international student, more than likely you will need a co-signer who is a citizen of the United States of America. Okay, take the time, if you're thinking about a private loan or Graduate Plus loan, take the time to review the terms of the loans. The federal loans always have a new interest rate every year. It's a fixed rate for the duration of your repayment. Private loans, you have to read the fine print, right? You have to make sure, is it fixed? Is it variable? If it's variable, is there a ceiling and a roof to that variability? What are your repayment options? Those are real things you want to think about, right? The federal loan offers several different repayment options, and it also offers on the federal aid website a calculator, so you can actually put in how much debt you'll be in, what's your expected income, and then based off the different type of repayment plans, how much will your monthly repayment be? Right? You kind of want to know that information, right? Going into this, it's an investment, so you want to think about what your financial circumstances may look like after you were to graduate from the program. So definitely take the time to look at all of your options. The new interest rates for the next academic year, so for the 2022-2023 academic year, we won't know the interest rates until around June, okay? End of May, early June, we find out the new interest rates. So just take the time, review what banks are offering. Obviously, that stuff might change by the time, you would think about actually enrolling in the program. But just review what the loans are about. Feel free to always, ask us any questions if there's any type of confusion or want some more clarity. But these are your loan options, all right? And let me move on to the last area here for me, scholarships and fellowships. So let me actually, so you know how to navigate this. So admissions, we'll go to financial aid, and now we're going to go to scholarships and fellowships. Now, let's click on this orange arrow, and then we're scroll down here to outside scholarships, and we're going to click on list of opportunities. Now, generally speaking, if you're thinking about applying to school and finance is going to be at least somewhat of an issue for you, you should be taking the time to research outside scholarships. This is our database of outside scholarships. Okay, take the time to review them, see what you may be eligible for. Take a look at the criteria. Make sure, if you're an international student, make sure it's, anybody can apply to it. If it's open to citizens and international students, right? You don't want to waste your time. There's thousands of outside scholarships out there. So, you want to be able to quickly identify the ones you may not be eligible for, just get them out of there. So, right, don't waste your time with it. Go through this, but, obviously do your own search. But I would say even importantly, maybe equally as important, go to other schools' websites. Go to maybe our engineering school, but also go to some other journalism school. Go to their financial aid page. See if they have their own database of outside scholarships. Make your own list. Create an Excel spreadsheet. Learn how to use Excel. Make a column where you have the deadlines for these outside scholarships, right? The calendar for these outside scholarships do not necessarily align with an academic calendar, right? There are some scholarships that have already passed for students who are going to start next fall. Okay, so take the time, maybe set aside 2 or 3 hours a week and just compile as many outside scholarships as you can. There's free money out there. Take the time to do the research. And I would also say, circle back to this later. We may also add scholarships, and check your email. Sometimes we send emails letting you know of outside scholarships that are new. Okay, so there's free money out there. Take the time to do the research. Always send us emails if you need a little bit of clarity on anything as well. And I just want to go back to the cost side of things. I kind of skipped over this for our international students who will require you generally a student visa to come into the United States. Now, if we go back to the costs, again, admissions, cost of attendance, right? You'll see that, the cost for each of the programs. For international students, you need to demonstrate and provide documentation to show that you can pay for all of these costs, the entire cost of attendance, tuition and fees, and your living expenses. Okay, you have to do that. And then, obviously you want to be able to do that too, because you don't want to run into any problems when you're here. Again, you have to take care of your costs for the fall term in order to move on to the spring terms, right? So you don't want to misrepresent anything in any way. So make sure you have the actual sources of income necessary to pay for your tuition and fees, but also your cost of living. It's an intense program, especially if you're full-time. We ask you not to work while you're in the program, and you don't want to have to worry about any of the financial hurdles, or it's essentially the cost of anything, right? You want to, what the costs are. The costs are very transparent. If you have the money, great, and then you can take care of it and you just concentrate on school. You don't want to be stressed out about the cost of anything, the tuition fees, or any of your living, okay? You want to be here comfortably and absorb as much as you can from the journalism school, all right? With that, I'm going to turn it over to Dean Almanzar so she can talk about institutional aid. And again, we'll open it up for questions in a few minutes.
Thank you, Edwin. Thank you for that. And once again, welcome all of you. Please hang on. I can see the few faces that you're allowing me to see. Your eyes are glazing a little bit over. Just hang in there. I know this is not the most riveting of information in comparison to our other webinars, but I assure you that if you are able to plan for your finances, even before you know that you're admitted to the program, then you can be excited and you can plan for your academics and move forward. So hang on with us for the next few minutes. With that said, the J School does offer scholarship funding. We offer over $5 million. I know that frequently the question that we get is how can I increase my chances of getting a significant scholarship? What is it that you're looking for? Is it all need-based? I'll start off by demystifying a bit about where we get our scholarship funding, and that's going to answer those questions. Every single penny that the J School gives out, it's based on donations that are made to the schools. This comes from private donors, companies, news organizations, and they have very specific eligibility requirements from the program that they want the funds to go to what the applicant, the student, should have in order to receive the funds. What that means is that in order for you to be considered and for us to be able to award the funds, you have to fill out the J School Scholarship Aid application. And if you don't remember anything else, just remember to start the application and hit submit. Literally submit the application. I cannot tell you how many applicants start the application and do not press that magic button at the end. So we're going to walk you through the scholarship application because what we've heard is that sometimes it can be a bit intimidating because it has so many sections to it. We're asking, about your background, your interests, your finances. But the great part of this application is that it's all your information. So who knows you better than you. We're not going to be asking about your parents' financials. We don't need their tax returns. We don't need any information about their savings or anything like that. It's all your information. So with that said, I'm going to turn this over to my colleague, David Hooker, who will walk us through how to gain access to the application and walk you through some sections of it, and then I'll walk you through some of it. But you know what, David? Sorry, before I turn this over, one key thing to remember is that our admissions process is need blind. What does that mean? It means that we will not look at the J School scholarship application or your ability to pay for the program. Remember that cost of attendance that Edwin just walked you through? That is not part of our consideration, because that's another reason why some applicants hesitate in submitting the scholarship aid application, which has a January 15th deadline. We are not going to be looking at that. Quite honestly, we don't have the manpower to look at every single application. But aside from that, it is a policy of the journalism school to have the admissions process be need blind. So again, we will not look at that. One other thing, for those of you who are interested in the doctorate program or who will be applying to the doctorate program, you do not need to fill out the scholarship aid application. For our doctorate students, for our PhD students, there is a standard grant and stipend award that it's awarded to each and every single one of you by the nature of being admitted into the PhD program. So again, 3 key things: admissions is need blind, so do not hesitate to submit the scholarship application, but that applies only to my master's degree applicants. If you are a PhD student, this does not apply to you. So David, with that, now I'll turn it over to you.
All right, thank you, Taryn. Just going to share my screen here. Okay, so to access the scholarship aid application app, which is already open, all you do is go to our main journalism website, journalism.columbia.edu. You can access it also by clicking the orange apply button down here. You can also click on it by clicking the word to begin and scroll down to apply. So there's pretty much on every page that you select on the journalism website, there's a big apply button. So you just click there. And you would use the same information for the admissions application. So if you're applying for the MS program or the MA program or any of our master's programs, you would just use the same username, the same email address, and the same password. So you'll get here, and the screen, it'll show a little bit different. It will say either log in for a returning user or create a new information if you're just now creating, if you haven't done a profile yet in our application system. So this is the page that you'll get to. Hopefully you already have an admissions 2022 application here. And if you already have that, you would select start new application. It would not already show up on your application started here because you haven't opened it yet. So to open it, you would select this year's round. So it's 2022. And then the drop-down box here is where you'll find where it says Scholarship 2022. So you would click there and then create new application. And then this drop box will open here. It's already highlighted. Then you would select open application. And then this will take you to the landing page for the Scholarship 2022. The first page you'll land on will be sort of the overview. This will give you instructions, pretty much what Edwin went over, the financial aid application, the FAFSA, that's also has to be submitted January 15th along with the scholarship aid application. So sort of a reminder in this instructions page that you have to submit both. It'll also tell you that you do not have to complete the entire scholarship aid application in one setting. So that's good to know. You can work on it for, one time in a day, and then come back, use the same login information and be able to access the page, the scholarship aid application again. I would say it probably takes maybe about an hour, maybe an hour to 2 hours to complete the application. So you don't have to complete it all in one setting. You can just log off and then come back to it at a later date. And these are just going to show you some more deadline reminders about the application for both the scholarship aid and the FAFSA. A few sort of reminders for US citizens and permanent residents, what you have to submit for your application, and then some instructions for international students and what they have to submit for the scholarship aid application. So we'll go back up to here. The next tab will be your personal information. Very straightforward. This will be copied over. If you've already started an admissions application, this information will automatically populate. So for the most part, you won't have to do anything in the first tab. And then we'll get to the second tab here, which will be some yes or no questions. As you can see, are you a US veteran? You can answer that yes or no. A few more sort of yes or no questions, marital status, if you have any dependents, the ages of your dependents, pretty straightforward. Then we'll drop over to the next tab, which is the Applicant Data tab. And then this will sort of give you an opportunity to start selecting or giving us more details about you as a student. Have you received honors? If you have, you can list it here, either McNair, Fulbright, or list additional honors. What type of reporting you've done in the past. Arts, you can check more than one. You can check as many that is relevant for you. So you can check, radio, science, sports, and then what type of journalism you'd like to be interested in doing after you graduate. After you've gained all the skills at Columbia, what type of reporting you'd like to, or what interests you have. And again, just the same as above, you can click on multiple bullet points here. Okay, and the same thing. Is there a specific platform you're interested in doing after graduation? All right, makes sense. And then same thing here would be for the biographical data. This is just a short sort of blurb, 150 words, where you tell us about yourself in the third person, any relevant work experience that you've had, what your future goals are, why you want to attend the journalism school. And there's an example here that we have listed. So you can sort of get an idea of what we're looking for and how to submit that. So you don't have to upload this as an essay. You would just type it here in the Word box. Okay. And then this is where we start, you'll start uploading materials. This is the required documentation part. Remember back in the instructions, there was, we had a blurb for what's required for US citizens and permanent residents, and then also what's required for international students. So this is the area where you upload that information. Taryn, I'll turn it back over to you. If you have any more insight about how they should go about uploading these forms and what all that entails.
Thank you, David. Yes, absolutely. So let's divide this into a couple of groups. If you are a student currently enrolled in undergraduate, or if you're being supported by your parents, remember, we do not want your parents' tax information or anything like that. If you have worked or still working in 2021, and you're going to be filing taxes, and this is you, the applicant, what we're going to need is, if you're a US citizen, you will fill out the 4506T form, which is free. You fill that form out, and it's that link at the top in blue, very straightforward. You click on that, and you are giving us basically permission in the event that we randomly select you for verification to get your tax documents directly from the IRS. And we understand that for most of you, when you're submitting this form, if not for all, you're not going to have your 2021 taxes. And that's fine, because if you are randomly selected, it would be after April 15th that we would do that. So that's what you will upload here. For international students, if again, you may not have the 2021 taxes, and that's fine. What you will do is upload a copy of the 2020 taxes, if you have any, in the original language and a translation of it. If you have not filed for 2020 taxes and the first time that you will be filing is in 2021, Under other, you will upload a brief statement, just letting us know that I have not filed for taxes in 2020 and I'm filing taxes in 2021. More to come at a later point. So those are for the students who are, for the applicants who have their own tax returns. If you're being supported by your parents, under that other section, also, you will upload 2 documents. One, where you are explaining I'm being, I was fully supported by my parents, they're paid for my living expenses, and then a statement from your parents where they're verifying that. Yes, I have supported Taryn Elmansar in 2021. She was a full-time student. I covered all of her living expenses. Again, if you're randomly selected by us for verification, at that point, we will let you know what else we will need from your supporter. But that's it. That's all we need in terms of the documents here. Now, the following section, we're trying to just gain a little bit of insight as to how much of your household income came from different sources. If you're being supported by your parents or by someone else, then all of this would be 0 because you have no direct income. You were being supported. If, for those of you who are supporting yourself, if you don't have a business, do not leave it blank, just put in 0. If you didn't have any interest or dividends, put in 0s, real estate 0. And then where it gets to work, that's where you will put an amount. So again, do not leave anything blank because we would assume that you just skipped over the questions. You would just put in 0s. And again, this is for 2021 information. On to the next section, David. This is for applicants who are living abroad. So whether you are a US citizen who is living offshore, or you're an international student who is living outside of the US. What we need from you in the first question is just to let you know what is the currency exchange. So $1, for example, is the equivalent of X amount in rupees or in euros, whatever the case may be, Canadian dollars. The next question is if your country has any restriction in you getting funds out of your country. You need to let us know. And for those of you who live and have those restrictions imposed, you know what that means. And then we want to know if you have any emergency funds. Why are we asking that question? Life happens, right? And if you remember what my colleague Edwin stated at the beginning, where for your student visa, you need to demonstrate that you have enough funds to cover tuition, fees, and living expenses. But we highly recommend and we highly urge you to think about having some reserved funds. So if life happens, any emergency happens, you have this pocket or you have this extra source that you can tap into to cover those expenses. So think about that as you're moving forward. And then we want to know just how you would be paying to get over here, like for your flight, for your visas, so on and so forth. So that's what that section is about. Next section. It's asset information, so anything that's not related to work that you may have. If you own a business, any assets that you may have. And the key thing to note here is that do not provide information that pertains to your primary home. So if you are currently living in a house, in an apartment, and that's your home, that's where you live 100% of your time, 90% of your time, do not list that there. That is not an asset. That's your current home, that's where you live. Anything else, that's what you will indicate here. Next section. And again, if it doesn't pertain to you, just put in zeros or not applicable, an A. Expenses, this is to know more or less what your expenses were in 2021. Again, if you were supported by somebody else, parents, family and friends, all of this would be zeros. For those of you, just take your best guess. You can either provide the amount per month, which is what we would advise for you to do. But if that's harder to do and you want to provide an estimate for the entire year for 2021, then that is fine as well. And again, anything that does not pertain to you, just put in zeros. We're not looking for exact amounts. We always get that question. Well, I know more or less, and that's fine. What we want is an estimate. If you're randomly selected for verification at that time, we would ask for supporting documents such as utility bills, bank statements, so on and so forth. But for now, all that you're providing is the information. The next section is expected support. And this is what you will be getting to cover tuition fees or the living expenses while you are enrolled as a student. Make sure that this is funds that you have for sure. These are not funds that I think I might get. I've been promised I will get. This is what you currently know you will have. So any income that you may be expecting or have from your assets, any income that you expect to earn while you're a student. And let me take a pause here. For those of you who will be enrolling in any of our full-time programs, please do not think about working while you're enrolled. We highly discourage our full-time students from working. And why do we do that? You're going to be enrolled in a fast-paced program where you're going to do actual reporting and where your time is going to be consumed by the J School. And I'll put it in perspective. It's not uncommon for you to come in, for example, to a class that begins at 9 o'clock in the morning. You're here, you're hitting the pavement out in New York, doing some of your reporting for your class, for your master thesis, for your projects. You're coming back to another class, going back outside, and then you're coming back to the building, and then it's 2, 3 o'clock in the morning and you're still working on your master thesis, on your projects. Plus there's going to be guest speakers, workshops that you want to take advantage of. So please do not think that you will be able to work. For our international students, for those of you who will be getting a student visa, it stops being a recommendation and it becomes a legal requirement of your student visa. You're not able to work under the with a student visa. It violates the terms and conditions of your visa. You know, some of this, what's allowed, but again, we highly discourage that, is for you to find on-campus employment for no more than 10, 20 hours a week. That's what the law states. But again, if you're a full-time student, do not think about doing that. And do not take our word for it. Reach out to our alums and current students and just find out and get a sense of how they approach their finances and how if they were able to work. And you will see that what we're telling you is the truth. But do your reporting on that. Moving on to the next section. Here is just some links that we are providing of the estimated cost of attendance, and it's what Edwin went over before. We've included that in there so that we can, quite honestly, just reinforce the fact that you have to think about tuition fees and living expenses as you're moving forward. So that stops the financing part of it. Now we're going to move on to fellowships. The question that we usually get is the following. I've looked at the different essays and fellowships. I don't qualify for any of them. Or I know that you're offering a particular scholarship, let's say the Bhartia for citizens of India, or the Pulitzer Africa for citizens of Africa, or any of such, and I don't see it listed here. What's going on? This is not a comprehensive list by any stretch of the imagination of what the J School offers. We have over 200 different scholarships with different amounts, different eligibility requirements that we are offering and that our donors have provided to the schools. The fellowships that you're seeing listed here, that's because the donors want further explanation, further insight, further window view into how the applicant fits into what they're looking for. So take the time to read it through. Usually what we will find is that students or applicants, I should say, create one essay and then they copy and paste to all of them. Please don't do that. Please don't do that. Take the time and make sure that it's fitting into your interest, that it's fitting into your biography, that it's fitting into your goals, because we have to, by law, make sure that we're meeting the requirements by the donors. And moreover, let's say we're picking you for the Lauren Terrazzano, which is open to both domestic and international students, and is looking for applicants who show an interest and commitment to covering social issues. And let's say we're able to award you those funds. In the fall semester and in the spring, the donor may want to meet with you, may want to talk to you, may want to have a conversation with you. And when you're sitting across from them, it's imperative that you're able to talk about your commitment. It's imperative that you're able to say how their funds are able to help you. And why do I say imperative? A, because if it doesn't, then we're in hot waters in more ways than one, because of with the education, Department of Education compliance with the donors, so on and so forth. But also in hot water for you, because donors can become sources for you, can become a conduit for your professional development and for your connections. So make sure, and then moreover, as you're approaching the scholarship application, as you're putting forth the information, always know that you are a journalist. And as a journalist, you have this higher ethical standards that it comes with the truth and putting forth information that it's infallible, that it's accurate, and that it's reflective of who you are. So that's the way to approach particularly this section. Moving on, special circumstances. We've asked about your finances, about your interest and everything else, but let us know if there is anything else that we should keep in mind as we are reviewing and evaluating your eligibility for it. What are some of the things that students or applicants share with us in this section? They may share, in 2021, I've, although you're looking at my expenses and my taxes and my income, what you may not know is that I had to support my parent or had extra expenses due to COVID or an illness or whatever the case may be. So this is your opportunity to let us know about that, and we would be able to take that into account. So that's what that section is about. Finally, we have the declaration, and this is important for you to read. This is, again, just verifying that the information that you have provided is accurate. It's representative of who you are, your income, your interest, and everything else. David, if you can scroll down a little bit more. I just want to make sure that you know that we can randomly select you for verification. And that if we find that information was misinterpreted, misconstrued, you're putting in jeopardy your admissions to the school. And if you're enrolled, it's grounds for us to rescind that offer. So by law, by requirement, we have to put that there. So just something to keep in mind. Then finally, the review section. And this is, I think, where people get miss this part or don't press that submit button. There are certain pieces and areas, and it seems like it's almost all of it, that it's required for you to fill it out, for you to not leave it out blank. So that's why I say if something does not apply to you, put in zeros or not applicable, because then it'll allow you to submit the application. If any of those sections are blank, you will not be able to hit submit. So just make sure that you go back, and if it doesn't apply, just put in zeros or NA. And that is the end of the J-School Scholarship Data. So again, it's all information about you. It's information that you have. And as David stated, you can start the application, save it, go back to it. If I were in your shoes, personally, I would start with my biography. That's easy. Done. The personal data, done. Click some few boxes, done. Fill out all of the things that do not apply to me, zeros, NAs. And what you're doing with that is that you're getting the easy part done and completed, and then you're able to go back and start filling out the things where you may have to think a bit more, whether it's an essay that you want to craft together, or if you want to, or if you need the statement from anyone, or taxes. So that's one way of approaching the scholarship data. So you have hang on to us for 48 minutes. Now it's your opportunity to submit questions. Although I know most of you have submitted questions as you were signing up for the session, and that's how we were able to tailor this webinars as we've done with all of our admissions ones. So thank you for submitting that. But we realized that you may have more questions now. And if so, please send them to my colleague, Ross Yelsey, who will ask us those questions. And Ross, over to you.
All right, thank you, everybody. I'm already seeing some good questions in the chat, and I was mentioning too, if you have a very specific question or we don't get to everyone's questions in the time we have today, you can write to us at apply.journalism@columbia.edu with those questions. And if you have admission-related questions about the application for admission, we'll be having another webinar this Monday, the 13th. I'll put another link to register for that, where we can talk more about that. We'll be also having some smaller sessions pretty much every day through now and December 17th. So I'll put a link to join those. You can ask more, specific questions, and we'll have more of a small group chat to address some of those. But for now, I thought the question I'd ask is a general one, is about, okay, so in the happy occurrence that somebody is admitted to the school, as we said already, admissions decisions are totally need blind. It is not related to any of the information you're putting in the scholarship application. But if you've been admitted to the school, you find out you've been admitted and you've submitted your scholarship app by the deadline, how are decisions made about who receives scholarship? Can you demystify that a bit for people?
Absolutely. I'm going to share my screen. Well, I'm going to try. I always fail at sharing my screen, but I'm going to take an opportunity and take a chance of sharing this. Let's see. Share. Can you all see it? Yes?
Yep.
Awesome. All right. So if you go to the scholarship aid section that my colleague Edwin went through under scholarship and fellowships. By law, we have to tell you how allocations for fellowship and scholarships are done. So with that said, for those that submitted the scholarship aid application, we will determine who gets scholarship funding on 3 eligibility requirements: merit, as determined by the admissions committee; financial need, as determined by the free application for federal student aid for those who are U.S. citizens; documents; and graduate school of journalism scholarship aid form. And finally, and most important, by the guidelines, by the awarding eligibility requirements that our donors have attached to their scholarship funding. So if you meet all three, we're able to give you funds.
Oh, great. And then another question, this is a question for anybody who's interested in whether they're eligible for, different scholarship opportunities. Is there any use in writing to our staff before, scholarships are actually awarded to ask, what your chances are, what odds you're going to get a scholarship or what amount scholarship you're going to get? Is that something we can forecast for anybody, whether you're a domestic or international student or an international applicant?
An excellent question. And the answer, unfortunately, to that is no. So why is it no? I'm going to demystify a little bit the process of how funding is awarded. So we have, like I've mentioned, over 200 scholarships, different accounts, different awarding requirements. We start looking at what are the donors' awarding requirements, what's attached to that specific scholarship. And then we start seeing who meets that requirement. We come up with a list of who meets that, and then we start looking at financial need and merit to see who we can award the funds to and who would be selected for it. So that's why when you reach out to us and you ask, oh, how can I increase my chances? How can I know if I'm going to get scholarship aid? We're not able to answer that. All we can say is what I stated just now. Make sure you hit submit, make sure that your scholarship application, your biography, those check boxes that David went over in terms of the kind of reporting that you are interested in doing or have done, that it's filled out accurately and correctly.
Great. And now some more specific questions. We had a question about, I think where people are putting in their financial statement, do they just need to show that they can afford the educational expense amount, which is the tuition and fees, or do they have to actually account for the living expenses, the full cost of attendance when they're filling out that amount in the application?
In the scholarship application?
That was the question in terms of what do they put as the educational expense amount? Would that be the tuition and fees or the cost of attendance?
It'll be the cost of attendance. Remember what Edwin stated? It's tuition, fees, plus the living expenses. Yeah.
Okay, and for international applicants, someone is wondering, do they have to send both their tax form and an income statement from their employer, or can just one be sufficient? Or do you have to have both things?
Taxes. We would prefer taxes. Taxes, tax return.
Great. And if someone's expecting to get a veteran's educational assistance as a dependent, would they put that under expected support in the application, or should they wait until that's confirmed?
They should put that on the expected support. Yeah. Well, usually for veterans, you would know more or less how much you will be getting. So for the person who is asking that question, what I would suggest, if it's coming via your parents or a spouse, is to have a conversation with them. We also have a department here at the university, Veterans Affairs, who can help you with that process. And you can start reaching out to them now and they can give you some guidance on it. And it runs the gamut. For veterans, it can be from a portion of tuition, we've seen that, to stipends to cover your living expenses. And in some instances, it could be the full cost of attendance, meaning tuition fees plus your living expenses. And if that is the case, then you would be set. So my recommendation is to do the homework now of figuring out how much you can expect from the VA.
Another specific question about if you're going to be listing some agencies that may support your education in the app, should you also plan to put any government loans that you're expecting to get as instances of that?
No loans. No loans. We want to know about grants, scholarships, third-party payments. Yeah. This is for the scholarship aid application. If this is for the student visa for your I-20, then yes, you have to provide everything and how you're going to be covering tuition, fees, plus living expenses.
Okay, and we kind of went over this in the discussion, just to reiterate it for people. Someone was wondering, they're saying that they are completely going to be dependent on their parents to fund their education. And then this person asking what documents they need to submit to fill out in the scholarship form to show that when you are asking for educational financial information.
They would need to provide a statement from the parents stating that they were fully supported. Everything else for 2021, like your expenses, income, all of that would be zero because you didn't have any. If they will be supporting you moving forward as you enrolled at the J school, you would put the amount that they're giving to you in US dollars under expected support. And it should be under, I believe the question is family and friends. That's where you would put that amount that they're providing to you.
It's a pretty easy question, I think, to answer. Is there any problem if one is, doing the scholarship application and they apply to many of the different scholarships that we're listing? Is there any downside to applying for all you think you could be eligible for? No.
No, no, absolutely not. Please apply for everything and anything. That goes for my domestic students, international students. Just really take the time, as Edwin said before, to really apply for those scholarships, for those private sources of funding.
Mm-hmm. And Taryn, you talked a lot about, how hard it would be to be a full-time student and to do other work on the side. But we had a question about, I know some schools maybe offer these opportunities, but is it worth reaching out to faculty about fellowships or funded research TA positions if you're in our full-time master's programs?
No, no, because they're not, they're just not available to our master's students. The teaching assistantships and research assistantships are usually reserved for our doctoral students. But again, for our full-timers, whether it's the MS full-time, data full-time, dual degree full-time, Masters of Arts full-time, please do not plan to work while you are enrolled.
Mm-hmm. Great. This is another specific question. This is someone who says they are a self-employed writer and their income is coming from federal grants for this particular 2021 year. In this case, would they leave the employer's letter like non-applicable if they are putting that information in the application for their background?
So I'm sorry, Ross, can you repeat the questions? Where is the income coming from again?
Federal grants.
Federal, that is a grant, so it's not an employer, right? So what you would do is upload under other the grant letter that you received, the offer letter where it tells you like we're giving you X amount of dollars for the fellowship and grant.
And then another follow-up about, this is someone who's asking, about this issue, if they are being supported by their parents and they're putting this letter in to explain that, do they have to is there a place they need to put their parents' actual income to provide that information to us?
No, no, at this time, no, do not provide your parents' income information. All we need is the statement from them.
Taryn, if you don't mind if I jump in real quick.
Sure.
Even if your parents are going to pay, that's fine. But please understand the bill is in your name. Everything is in your name. Okay, so if they're going to take care of it, wonderful. Be sure that they're going to take care of it. But at the end of the day, it is 100% your responsibility. Okay, it's 100% your responsibility that that payment is made, and then you can go ahead. That payment is made for the fall, so you can go ahead and register for the spring semester and complete the program. Okay, anybody can. I don't say anybody, but anybody can essentially pay for your bill. But it is your responsibility. It is in your name.
Thanks, Edwin. And then just to clarify from the person who asked earlier about this issue about whether they should show that they can, either the difference between the cost of education and the cost of attendance. This person was asking more for an international student in terms of, applying for the visa. Would they need to show that they can afford the cost of attendance or just the cost of the tuition and fees in those cases?
Cost of attendance. Mm-hmm. So it's everything. Mm-hmm. And for my international students, as you are applying for the student visa, make sure that those are funds that you have available and that you have to cover your living expenses. Remember, this is a legal document. that you are providing to the Department of Homeland Security. So everything that you provide in that application must be already secured, and funding that you will have to cover tuition, fees, and living expenses.
Great. And one last question about when people are putting in what kind of reporting they've done in the past and that those checkboxes. Does this have to be like formal, like you can show that you've done professional reporting in these areas, or can be more general, maybe in university or in other contexts, you might have done some stories on these different topics? Does it have to be published work only for those checkboxes?
It should be published work, whether it's at a university newspaper or a magazine or anything like that.
Mm-hmm. Great. So I think we're going to close now. I know there's somebody raising their hand, and unfortunately, I don't think they're able to use the chat. So I'd recommend this person, as well as everyone else who is has other questions, more specific things they want to follow up with us about. You can reach out to us at apply.journalism@columbia.edu with any of that. You can also come to one of our smaller sessions coming up as well, or to our admissions application session on Monday. I put the link in there as well. So you're welcome to reach out to us and talk to us there about more of what goes into the application for admission, as a lot of our deadlines for those are coming up really fast. And of course, the application for scholarship, you have a little bit more time. It'll be January 15th to complete this particular portion of the application if you're applying to our MS or MA programs. And so to close, I'll hand this over to my colleague, Edwin, again. Hey, Edwin.
Thanks, Ross. Stole the majority of my thunder there. It's all good. Thank you, everybody, for coming. Thank you. Well, I hope you enjoyed the entertainment side of things. We had a lot of drums and sirens. This is New York City, so I hope you enjoyed all of that. Again, as Ross said, we have a bunch of other opportunities for you to coordinate with us, to speak with us all throughout next week. That you should be aware of what your deadlines are. Some of you are this month, some of you are in January. Please be cognizant of that. And as Dean Almanzar said, you must hit submit if you would like to receive institutional aid from us. Hit submit on that scholarship aid application. It is a separate application. Hit the submit button. Find out how much aid you may or may not receive from us. It is a common thing for students to say, oh, Columbia is expensive, this school is expensive, this is expensive. Well, yes or no, it's relative to each and every one of you, but also you need to see how much aid you're going to receive so you know what the out-of-pocket expense is to you specifically, right? So fill out that application. As far as timeline, again, you know when your deadlines are. We make our decisions around the second or third week of March. At the same time, when you find out your decision of whether or not you're being admitted, you will also know how much aid you may or may not be receiving from us, okay? So again, that's second or third week of March, you'll get all of that information. So it's a good amount of time. We do a thorough process evaluating your application for admission as well as your scholarship application. And so with that, from Ross, John, David, Taryn, and I, thank you for joining us, and good luck with your application.
Bye, everyone.